It's like a two-pack here. I don't know if we should open up or not, because it's like, well, it's 2010. I don't think, well, the Yankees didn't win that year. They won '09, so I don't think there's any great rookies. So if you open up, then it loses value, so I don't want to do that. And plus, there's like Dustin Pedroia on it. He's from Boston. I hate him. Hey, Gio, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Gio, you are the creator of your blog. It's WTH Balls, so I guess it's When Tops Had Balls. People
Yeah,
can follow you on Twitter at WTH Balls, and there's a link there to the blog.
yeah.
And obviously, and I just want to congratulate you. I just saw you recently had a 10-year anniversary just, for a couple of weeks ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so congratulations. And so tell us about the blog.
Well, again, it started 10 years ago, kind of. And in all honesty, I was bored one day on a Saturday and, just kind of decided, you know what? I've done everything else. I never did anything regarding baseball cards. And I've been obsessed with baseball cards since about 1976 or so. I was 7 years old at the time. And my cousin Anthony got me into card collecting. And as I do with anything else I get interested in, I just became obsessed. And it's like the one thread throughout my whole life that I always had that I could always go back to. Over the years, I think I've sold off my collection 3 different times, got back into it. This time it's for good. And it's just the greatest hobby in my eyes. I mean, just for the history, the tactical experience, like just having these old relics, everything that ties into it, even socially. It's just, I'll never get bored of it. You
Now,
know,
and are you the only one that contributes to the blog, or you have others?
it's only me. I think I've had other people once or twice send me stuff that they've done or they've collected that I've posted up, but that's something I would actually love to expand on. I'd love to get more people if they feel they have something they want to send me to post up. I'm always open to that. I mean, that's it. That's my favorite part of this whole thing is just all the different people I met. And like just today, I got in the mail something from Don Baylor's nephew, and who reached out to me about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, and I sent him some stuff. And he was kind enough to send me a 1988 autographed card from Don Baylor, and I've had other family members of other players reach out to me where I was able to do stuff for them. In some cases, even for memorials. Which is it's incredible. It's incredible. This is just a hobby, and I really only do this for the hobby. I don't do this for anything else. Even the custom sets I create, I put them out as cheap as I can just to recoup my costs, and I'm good because this is all purely fun for me. It's tying in my profession with my obsession of cards. You know,
You mentioned you're a graphic designer, so I guess how do you do this? So you take cards from that, I guess, that era, and you kind of just change things about aspects about them that maybe you see, it would be cool if it was like this. Is that pretty much what you do?
well, I mean, I'm 54, right? And for anyone out there that's around my age, I'm sure you can sympathize in 1980, ripping open packs as a Yankee fan in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and expecting to see or find or get that Thurman Munson card after what happened, and realizing there wasn't one. Granted, now I get it, but back then as a kid, 10 years old, or the year before, me and my friends going crazy trying to find that damn American League All-Star, uh what was it, Freddie Patek's card that was supposed to have the All-Star banner on it, and it never did, and it drove us nuts. And you realize these things as you collect later on. Reggie Jackson's 75 card it wasn't on that All-Star template. It still bugs me, little things like that. And then players that you thought would get a card and they didn't. And then after a while, with modern technology and Illustrator, Photoshop, and so on, well, why not? So I just started playing around. Richie Zisk, his 78 card, or was it the 78 card that should have had the All-Star Shield? And 78 is one of my favorite sets. So little things like that I just started playing around, using the templates, finding images. And again, luckily, because today you can find images easily, um, it was just something I started to do for myself. And then slowly people would email me or through the blog, and it just became this, I realized that's when I learned that there really was this whole community out there of us that was into this, that really liked this, that it was just about filling in our obsessive collections, those little things that have been nagging us for like 30, 40 years. And it's both hilarious, but at the same time, I do get that seriousness of it. There's nothing like a completed page, like you see people post all the time, and I love it. But yeah, that's why I just started it, and I just kept it going.
Now, is that what you call the missing card? Because I see you post a lot of those, like it's called like a missing card. So that's
Yeah.
basically you're making up a card that it should have existed, it didn't, and then you kind of just create it with your graphic,
I mean,
background.
the way I always just figured out missing in action, what I call them, those are the cards that really should legitimately, those players should have had a card that year. It would make no sense, whether it was something like Rusty Staub or Tony Horton or Mike Marshall, guys that purposely, there's a reason why they didn't have the card, contractual reasons and so on, or guys that put in enough time, but for one reason or another, Topps didn't include a card for them. Then you got, like on the blog, people see not really missing in action. All right, those are cards for guys that, all right, I get why Topps didn't give them a card. They appeared in 6 games, 5, whatever it was, but it's just fun that I have the ability to create a card. So, and a lot of these guys fall into the category of they never had a card to begin with, whether it be for brief career or so on. And that's why I just released the Cup of Coffee set, which is guys that made the majors, but they never had a card. So I just created cards and released a 10 or 11 card set, which is really fun. A lot of us are really into that. Guys that, for us obsessive fans, that we know they existed, but as with so many other players, the reason as a kid they existed to us is because they actually had a card. Like, you got players like George Zieber or, guys that we would have never even known, but because they had that Topps card, they were almost mythic to us. So why not create cards for these guys? Yeah.
And you mentioned before, obviously the '70s, that was the era you kind of grew up. Is there anything about the '70s Topps cards, just any characteristics that make them unique against any other decade, and maybe why you're just so drawn to them outside of this, you kind of growing up during that period?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I guess that is it. That's the main thing. That's why 76, 77, 78. Those are my 3 favorite sets of all time, hands down. And of course, it's because those are the 3 first years I got into it. 77 is when I first really started buying cards, like a lot. In 78, I became like I needed to complete the set. So yeah, of course, there's that tie to when I got into it. And me and my cousin, always every time we'd see each other, because he was up in Yonkers, like when we would see each other, we'd all bring our cards and we'd be, trading or just looking at them or talking about them. But let's be honest, 81 is usually considered a year where cards and card collecting kind of really first blew out. Like, and yes, you had the two new companies creating cards, but Topps was also out there creating, that awesome Drake set or the Squirt set or the Coca-Cola sets. Like suddenly in 81, even as a 12-year-old, I realized things were changing, things were different. There was so much more. Everywhere I went, there were cards. Um, and then by the middle of the 80s, just, I was still collecting, like a lot of us, like right up until you get to college, and then you kind of put it on the back burner for whatever until you come back to it. But 70s was just, it was for a kid, it was there, it was familiar, it was great, but it was manageable. Whereas a young teen in 82, 83, 84 going to card shows, I was feeling it kind of slip away where even with a part-time job and I had some money, suddenly there was just so much more out there. And even vintage cards, the prices started skyrocketing. The 70s were, I think, was just a perfect time. We had these icons, we had Reggie, we had, Mark Fidrich, it just seemed like it was so much bigger than life than by the 80s going into the 90s. And and so on. I mean, I guess I sound like an old fart right now, but I'm sure a lot of it ties into my age and growing up when I did, you know.
Well, when you first started, I guess one of the original posts, you looked talk about, I guess your favorite card was the 76 Johnny Bench, I
Yes,
believe.
still
So
is.
what would you say is your maybe your four other to fill out maybe like your top five?
Well, I posted it. I could rattle it off. Number one is the 76 bench. Number two is 78 Reggie. I'll tell you the exact moment. I even pulled it out of a pack for the first time. Uh, Number three is 77 Dave Kingman. Number four is 77 Rusty Staub. It's like a mini poster. That's the best way I could describe that card. It's like a ready-made mini poster. And number five, I always have to go back to that 77 Mark Fidrich card because, again, I was in my driveway as a kid, first time I ever laid eyes on it, and Fidrich was still such a big thing. And just that card, the look on his face, that smile, the All-Star banner. I'm a big fan of on their base card All-Star designation. I'm not a fan of all separate All-Star cards. That's why 75 to 81. It's the greatest thing ever to have the All-Star designation on the player's base card. But Fidrich, just so big, and it was amazing. And to this day, to be honest, as far as a card that brings joy to me, I think the Fidrich card is number one. The bench card is just the most badass card I've ever seen in my life. I don't think anything's even approached it because he just looks badass. The dust coming up, the colors, the way his uniform matches the card colors, the big all-star, star designation, and the big red machine at the time. I mean, it's just larger than life to me, you know. But if you see the theme, basically my top five are all, again, 76, 77, 78, a couple of 79s in there, the Brett and Carew and the Larry Boa card from 79, I think is amazing. But those, I just think Topps had a really great run going on there.
Now, you mentioned the Drakes before. Actually, I remember getting the Drakes too in the 80s. I think I had a Henderson, maybe a Willie Randolph. But other than Drakes and Kellogg's, also I like you post the I guess it's Wilson hot dogs set, which
Wilson Franks, the 1954, yeah.
Yeah, if you just want to give a little background on that, because that's probably something like most fans or baseball card collectors don't know.
These are some of my favorite oddball sets, or for more recent collectors, like in 1933, the Orbit tattoo set, the George C. Miller set, 1894 Mayo plug set, the Wilson 1954 Wilson Frank set. These are cards that even for me are way out of my price range. I mean, these are just mythic cards to me. I got my first Beckett price guide, I think, when I was 12 in 1981, and just seeing even a sample or a photo of one, instant, like, just wow, like on a pedestal. And so now having the opportunity to kind of fill out those sets in a sense, like, just having fun with it and just creating and just seeing, and to be honest, a lot of it is also getting the reaction back from all my friends out there that are into it. So it's fun to create, knowing that it's not just for me. It's not, I'm just posting it up. And if I get a chance to print them up, because I print small batches of everything you see that I do. It's really small batches. And, it's just for the few of us that reach out, of you guys out there that reach out to me and want it. And it's like, great, just basically my cost of here. And it's just sharing this, creating these cards that should have been. And like the 1950 Drake set's another one I did. I released like a 10 card extension set with DiMaggio and Feller and Ted Williams and Musial and so on, Jackie Robinson. Even beyond the 70s, how many people have complained that Topps didn't release a 1967 Sandy Koufax card? I got to create one. Or, in 1957, Harmon Killebrew didn't have a card. Granted, it could go either way, but, well, I created one. Like, it's just that fun and interacting with everyone that, let's be honest, it's not every day I'm going to be able to talk to someone and mention, hey, 1957 Harmon Killebrew. Oh, he should have had a card. Like, there aren't many out there that are going to appreciate that. So it's fun to connect and talk about it. And yeah, of course it's a trivial thing, but for something I've been so obsessed with all these years, it's fun to meet like-minded people that can get it. so we just have a good time with it.
So like over the past like 10 years since you had this blog, do you think you probably posted a posting of each card during the 70s from the top series, or you maybe just or gotten close to it?
No, I not because I don't really post cards that exist unless there's a reason for me to do it. But I haven't missed a day on my blog. Let's say in the last 10 years, if I've missed less than 10 days in the last 10 years. Every day there's a new post, and it's generally stuff I created. So I've built up this monster base of cards that I've created, um, which is fun. And of those, I mean, a fraction were actually printed. Every month I try to release something where it's like 10 to 15 cards. I pick 15 of the cards. If it's a special set, that's a different story. Like I'm working on a truly unique set, just kind of like great photos I come across for baseball history. I could actually even show you a little proto of Hank Aaron. That's like something I'm kind of working on, kind of like a baseball history appreciation set. But yeah, I mean, in 10 years, definitely over 3,500 posts, if a little more. But it's become part of my routine. Like every week, I work basically 2 weeks ahead on blog posts, a month and a half ahead on the cards being designed for the next month and a half. And believe it or not, I have a spreadsheet. I have the next year of posts mapped out for every single day. And then every week, I just kind of add, either design the cards, a month and a half in advance. The next week, whatever's the next week, I write out the posts, like I just kind of like my part of my routine now. Just today, I'm trying to complete the whole Kellogg's run from 70 to 83. And, you know, someone I met online, I never knew this. The first series of the 74 Kellogg's, apparently there's an issue where they tend to crack much more easy. And I actually wrote back like, oh, wow, because I finally got in a Burke Campaneris card. And when I first started going after it because I needed it, I just couldn't understand why every time I found one, it was so expensive. I'm like, man, this is crazy. And I just found out, well, that's one of the cards that tends to crack. So I finally found an uncracked one at a decent price, and what was it? There you go. I still learned something new I didn't know before. So yeah, I'm just having a ball doing all this stuff.
Now, so and people obviously, you mentioned before, if they go through your website, they could contact you. I mean, do you do custom orders for people?
I mean, I would love to do more. I honestly can't because of so many other things going on in life. But I will. I mean, I definitely will from time to time. Again, I've done cards or I've printed up cards where what will happen is a family member of a more obscure player from the 70s will reach out to me because they came across the card. And even if I didn't print it, I work it out with them that the printer I use, which is a trading card printer down south, yeah, of course, as every other printer does, they have minimums. So I explained to them first, yeah, I could definitely do this for you, no problem. But just so you know, there is a minimum. They won't print just one or two. They do have a minimum. So there is this price, and as long as you're cool with it, I'm not going to tack on any other price. Like what it cost me to produce, I'll just charge you to pay, and that's it. Like, yeah, sure, no problem. It's just a pleasure to do it. And I mean, again, there's a player, Buddy Hunter, Mark Schaefer, for his sadly for his memorial, but someone reached out to me, and we had 1973, my 1973 card that I created. We had it printed up with information on the back and whatever for his memorial. Things like that. That's incredible to me. It's just amazing to be able to have this interaction for something that was always for me just this hobby that I was just hyper obsessed with, and now this interaction has gotten to a new level, which, man, that just makes it all worth it.
Now, the 70s, was that like the last decade where maybe they corrected the miscut cards? Because I guess you didn't see too much of that in the 80s. Was that like the last decade they finally figured that out?
80s had their issues. 86 tends to be a big one and they also look great miscut. As you know, I think you're bringing it up because you know I collect miscut cards. I'm a big miscut collector. I've always found them. I mean, when I was a kid, of course, I hated pulling a miscut out of the pack. You know, it was frustrating, but I just love. I have three binders. Phil, I'm looking over at them right now. I'm three binders full of miscut cards, and I have a lot of friends out there that when they come across one, they're so generous and they just send it to me. I mean, I think they're a riot, but yeah, the 70s, man. I remember 75. I couldn't believe just, it seemed like every other card was a diamond cut. Uh, it would kill me. But in the 80s, there were still some 81s, 86s. It would still come up. But once I started really hunting them down, and I do try to hunt down like premium cards that are miscut, like, you know, it's just fun to go after a card in a sense for a second time because I already, you know, I have the tops run from 58 to modern day, plus most of the kind of oddball side sets that tops would do, and then a bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, I really can't keep progressing further back. It's getting a little too expensive. So it's fun to create to go after miscuts and find someone recently was generous enough to send me the Rich Goss's rookie card, you know, but it was miscut. And it's just so much fun seeing these printing errors, especially when you get a miscut that shows parts of four cards. So you really know that sheet was just, it ran through the cutter misplaced. Like it's a riot. Or even say it doesn't even have to be miscut, ink problems, like actual printing problems. And with the nature of the business I'm in, I can appreciate that as well. You know, CMYK problems. It it's just a fun thing to collect that is still really inexpensive. You know, you find gems for nothing. I mean, people think it's junk, and you know, for some of us, it's actually it's a great find. It's a great thing to collect. I tell you, if I found a really great miscut 1971 Thurman Munson, it's going to be worth a hell of a lot more to me than most people out there. They're going to look at it and be like, that's trash. But to me, yeah, I would pay more because that's what I collect. But generally, you know, people don't really. It's just what that miscut collector values it at, you know? Yeah.
And do you also, one problem me with some cards, like I think it was the 73, like Mike Schmidt. Obviously, it's him and two other players. And I think 82 with Cal Ripken, it's like him and two other players. I mean, have you designed cards where you kind of like isolate them, like give them their
Oh
own, like
yeah,
rookie card?
that's a popular series that I've done over the years. It's called a dedicated rookie, and I've even released a set that was I actually released a 1960s dedicated rookie set where I took, you know, the big rookie cards of the 60s that were multiplayer. You know, Pete Rose, Tony Perez, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, Rod Carew, like a bunch of them. And I released that's one of the most popular sets I released. Like, you know, that was a quick one to go out the door. And then what I do is for my 70s sets, which are usually just a mix of different ideas, missing in action, not really, highlights. And then, of course, a dedicated rookie will be in a pack. So for the 70s, I've done the Schmidt. I mean, you name it. I think I covered all of them. By now, I've designed a dedicated rookie for every significant player that was on a multi-rookie for the 70s. I think the next one that I'm doing that's a dedicated rookie, I thought I had one coming up, but it's gotten, I've gotten to like Keith Moreland. I've gotten to, I can't find a good image of Pedro Guerrero for a 79. The worst multiplayer rookie cards ever made were the 1979s. But yeah, I've done dedicated rookies. I've done career cappers for guys that retired. But yeah, I'm sure you felt the same way. It would have been great to have that one last card of a player where you could flip it over like a Collier Stremski, flip it over and you got his complete career stats. I mean, come on, man, stats are everything. I live and die by stats. And you know, when guys would retire, but you never had that last card to have the complete, because this is, you know, for us, it's before the internet. You know, we couldn't just easily, you know, you had your Macmillan encyclopedia every few years that would come out. And you had I mean, as absurd as it sounds, that was like when you had to go buy a book, maybe, to have the full visual of that player's complete final statistics, So maybe some of the younger folks out there don't really understand where I'm coming from, but we weren't able to just turn around and go to Baseball Reference and the satisfaction of the full statistics. So it was frustrating. Like it would bother me. So career cappers, that's a popular one. Multiplayer, the dedicated rookie, which for sure, I mean, it would have been great because there's nothing better than the rookie cards of these guys when it's a solo rookie card, like it's kind of a bummer looking at a Dale Murphy rookie card and it's that little, or like you mentioned, the Cal Ripken in 82. It's a bummer, it would have been so much nicer to have the full rookie,
So, yourself, you mentioned before, I guess you grew up in Brooklyn and
Yeah.
as a Yankee fan. So, what just really quickly as we close out, what do you think about this year's Yankee team? Just to throw in some Yankee talk.
Look, as I get older, in a weird way, I become less a Yankee fan, more a baseball fan. And while I can't really say in the last few years, I find this Yankee team terribly entertaining to me, I need to add to it as a baseball fan. Now, granted, baseball as a whole, the whole sport, the way it's played these days, again, I know I'm going to sound like, like every generation says the same old thing, but it has changed. Watching games isn't like before, like everything is, I'm not a big sabermetrics guy. I'm not a big, I don't get into the talk about exit velocity and, I don't care. Like, I don't care if you ripped the double off the wall and it was 120 miles an hour. It was still double off the wall. It's still fine, just as fine as a looping double off the wall. I don't really care. So the Yankee team, I do find fun. I like the fact that they've given some younger players a little more of an opportunity than we've seen in the past. But I could tell you, as a baseball fan, I am absolutely loving this season. I'm loving all the different things going on. We got a guy who's almost reaching the midpoint, hitting 400. We got these young players that are, they're exciting. We got Shohei. I mean, Shohei's just ridiculous. I mean, as a baseball fan who loves baseball history, Shohei is also just a show in himself. And another thing I really love is, in the last few years as a baseball fan, just how far along appreciation for the Negro Leagues has gotten. Like, to me, that's humongous. It's just fantastic to me to see this. And I'm hoping that we can actually even take that to another level where let's really get interested into the international aspect of things.
Gio, I appreciate getting this time. Again, fans can follow you on Twitter. It's wthballs. Again, when Tops had balls, there's a link to the blog there. Seems like you're going to have your hands full for the next, probably next 10 to 20 years. So keep up the good work. And your stuff is awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun. Any other time, let me know. We'll talk some more.